Yeah, this came through Ben's office. It just shows the paper trail. If you would, please.
A little better.
Yes.
Okay, we are up and running on the clock. Everybody's mic's on. And I will call this meeting to order, DeKalb County Commissioners. Today's date is July 31st, 2023. Larry, you're up, I guess.
Yeah, just real quick. I talked to you guys about it, but I want to put it on record. The sheriff had asked about the restrooms being open for the fair, and I wanted to get your input on it so that everybody would know about it. I don't think it's a good idea, personally. And from what we've talked about, you guys were on the same page, but I just wanted to put it, I was asked for that, to be on record.
I think we're on agreement. I am anyway, that I agree we should not
Yeah, we've
provide that.
had the discussion, I think, the last couple of years. I mean, bringing everybody in through security is just, I mean, you got to extend security hours and all kinds of things, plus a lot of extra work for you. The other alternative is to open those east doors and block that off from the rest of the courthouse, which is pretty unwieldy, too.
Well, and it's not enough restrooms for thousands of people. I mean, really, if you think about it, that's,
Well, and the thing of it is, you got people that do care about it, but you have those ones that are just,
I don't care.
and the city did the same, they closed theirs as well.
sure,
Well, yeah, exactly.
Because they trash them.
yeah.
But the Fair Board has got very good coverage with Porter Johns,
Yeah,
so.
Okay.
yeah.
And the other thing I got is, I'll talk to Auburn Plumbing and Heating, and they did give us a discount for doing both of them at the same time. So I think they're gonna get those in this week.
Okay.
Great,
It was $1,000 discount, right?
Yeah, $1,000,
we'll take it.
yeah,
Yeah,
so,
go for it.
yep. Okay, anything
Absolutely.
else while I'm here?
I don't think so, no. That's
Okay,
all,
good.
that's all I have.
Thanks, guys.
A good one.
Yeah. Okay,
Now
Don.
be known as the Larry and Dottie Show.
Yes, yes.
Always
One
happy.
can't come without the other
Yeah, that's right.
going forward.
Hey, speaking of the fair, I am hoping that we can make arrangements again like we did last year with parking. Since parking is at a premium during that time for our employees, and they allowed anyone who had one of our parking tags that if, they couldn't find a parking spot in the usual places, that they could park down in the green lot. I wasn't sure who made that connection with the Fair Board last year, but I would like to put that on the table and ask to have that again. It seemed to work out pretty well. I'll tell you, I didn't get a bunch of complaints, as I have gotten in the past, from people not able to park, during that week.
We can make that happen. We can make it happen.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate that. Department heads meeting is this Wednesday, the 2nd of August at 8 a.m. in the White Room of the Annex. If anyone happens to be available, that would be wonderful. Something that the Safety Committee discussed a couple weeks ago was renewing our efforts toward the hepatitis B program. And that suggestion actually came from the representatives of the health department. What let me refresh your memory. Years ago, the county commissioners suggested that because it's an OSHA requirement that we offer to all affected employees the hepatitis B vaccine. Now, affected employees, that's difficult to ascertain. Normally, hepatitis B is through, it's usually bodily fluids. Bottom line, bodily fluids. And so just to kind of say, okay, we do have a few departments that applies to. Let's just go ahead and offer it to all of our employees. It's during our onboarding time. And you can, yes, I'd like to have that, or no, I wouldn't. Well, most recently, we had an employee who had a situation with bodily fluids on the job, and at the ER, it wasn't... It's unclear whether or not the employee was not sure if they had had the vaccine before or what, but the ER went ahead and started the protocol right then and there. So what we can do to avoid the county having to pay for Parkview to administer that vaccine going further, because it's a 3-shot deal, the health department is happy to provide the vaccine, the second and the third shot for this employee. But the health department thought, maybe, onboarding is kind of a crazy time. And, employees are like, well, I'm not sure, and we leave it pretty open. If the health department is happy to take a look at the state registry to see if a person has had the vaccine. But that requirement for providers to place it on the registry is really a fairly recent phenomenon, a fairly recent requirement. So some of our employees aren't quite sure if they ever had it. They could go back to their family physician. Did we ever have it? They don't remember, whatever. Anyway, so we're going to just remind employees that they can have this. If they said no before, that's fine. If they say no now, that's fine too. It's up to them. But we're just going to kind of renew the efforts to let them know that they can have this. It's a benefit if they are working in close quarters with certain populations. It's probably a good idea to have that, which is why the ER did the preventive that day when there was a work comp. So that's something that we're doing with the, along with the health department's blessing, because that is extra work for them. If we had a bunch of employees say, yes, I want to get that, and then they coordinate, because it's 3 shots. And so it has to be, your initial one, and then, I can't remember what the timing is, and so they keep track of it. So anyway, just kind of keeping you in the loop about that. We also discussed some mandatory safety training. So we're going to be talking to our department heads about that, sending out some emails to our department heads regarding some mandatory OSHA training that is being offered through IPEP. So, we already pay for IPEP. We're going to get the training for free. Yay. And it's good training. So that's great. And speaking of more OSHA training, the city of Auburn is working with IPEP to have an OSHA 10 class, October the 26th and the 27th. Because it's a 10-hour class, it's a full day on the 26th and a half a day on the 27th. So we already have 6 individuals signed up. I sent that information out to our department heads about that. And I targeted some of our departments who are really out and about. I would say the surveyor's office, the highway department, the soil and water, anyone who especially works, outside. It's good information for individuals who work inside an office or even for the sheriff's office, but probably pretty good, especially since it would be information that if we are working with contractors, we should, make sure that our contractors are working safely, also to protect our own employees.
What's the date on that? Okay.
That is October the 26th. That's a full day. And October the 27th, it's a half a day. And we need to know by September, no later than September the 15th, who would like to enroll. And if you would like that opportunity, let me know, and I will get you on the list. So it's, it's good safety training, and you get a little certificate that you are OSHA 10, certified. It doesn't exactly make you an expert, but it's really good information, and especially good to have, a variety of departments represented in the classes, so that they can take it back to their departments and then, try to promote a safety culture, which is what we really want. When it comes to hiring, Sunny Meadows has one housekeeper position open. Yes. So that's great. Highway Department, I was just talking to Larry about this. Ben and I had a back and forth this morning about, he's had a couple interviews recently. One person is not currently working. Ben, liked him. The guy said yes to the job. Ben, called him back, left messages twice. That was last week. Still hasn't heard back. Another one wanted 3 weeks of vacation, smack dab right off the bat. I told Ben, well, remember, you get 5 days after 6 months and 2 weeks after a year. That's 3 weeks right there. No, the person. And then I mentioned to, and I'm planning to look, I didn't have a chance this morning. You probably heard on the news that Yellow Freight is closing down. They had been bailed out several years ago, and so they're going to be closing, so that means a whole bunch of CDL drivers will be available. Where is their closest terminal? I got to find that. And hey, you know me.
Recruit.
That's right. If you don't ask, you don't get.
Right.
And headhunting. So, make contact with them, see if they'll post it at least on the bulletin board. We'll see. They may be getting a great, severance package, and those guys may not be available for another year. Well, but anyway, who knows? So, anyway, so Ben's a little frustrated with that, as you can imagine. We were excited. Health Department had an interview last week, and Cheryl is reviewing a few more resumes for that nurse. She and I have also been talking about, and I mentioned to you before, how important is that RN? It's very nice to have that solid foundation, but can we maybe focus a little bit more on the budgeting, the administrative, the emergency management side of it? And so we're kind of working through that. She's even thinking of maybe she needs to review the job descriptions in her department. So she already has a lot on her plate, and we're adding even that to it. And with one less staff member, a right-hand person that she's lacking. So, yeah, once again, I'm thinking so far outside of the box, I can't even see the box anymore. I'm, where else do we search? So, Veteran Services, Rhonda is interviewing as we go along. When she finds, she sees a resume, she's making a call, she's doing some phone interviews, kind of screening, and then she will be working on in-person interviews. So she's encouraged. And we also have a very qualified volunteer who is still helping her. So even with his new position, he's coming in to do some, volunteering. So that's that's helpful to her. Community corrections, they have 3 facilitators, officers, starting in the next few weeks. They have one starting today for night shift. They have one starting on the 7th of August, training for day shift, and then one starting on the 8th of August, training for night shift. So they asked me to remove that residential posting.
Great.
I know, so I'm very happy about that. We are still looking, however, for maintenance person, and they still have that probation officer position out there, so that's, but that's good. The facilitator officers, that's a good one that we're good on. Development services, the code enforcement. Chris and I have a Zoom interview today, and then we have an in-person interview tomorrow. So, yay on that. So, making progress there. And
I ran into Paul White yesterday
Did you?
and said he said he had somebody who he thought was interested. I don't know if
yes,
that's
he
one of
did.
the-
As
one
a
your
matter of
group.
fact, that is our in-person interview
Okay,
this week.
good.
So, yes. And, we've been in touch with Paul also, and, yeah. So that's, that's a good one. Anyway, and the health plan, I think I mentioned to you that every other week, United Healthcare, Shurst, and I will be having a phone conversation about any issues that have been, brought up, how they have handled them, how they've been resolved, anything that, I need to know. Sure, we email back and forth, but this is the formal, we're going to, sit down and have this meeting and really talk about any issues that they've encountered. And we've had a few where it's just been some hand-holding with the provider. And we've needed to go back and some of our employees either didn't hear in the meetings or weren't at one of the meetings to hear the message that Shurist and our broker told any of our employees that if they felt that they were close to their deductible, to provide HR with their most recent EOB from Anthem so that dollar amount could quickly be rolled over into their account prior to Anthem, getting their huge data load, boom, which, as you know, members will go to the to the ER, they'll go to the hospital, they'll go to the doctor, whatever. They will have something on the last day of a health plan being in force. And then by the time the provider gets the billing done, and then it gets to the insurance company. And so we're trying to wait as long as possible, and Anthem also, to get as much of that information as possible into our employees, so it's as accurate as possible. And so that their deductible amounts go into their out-of-pocket, so that if they've reached their out-of-pocket, well, then, of course, things are cheaper for them. And, we do want to help our employees do that. And we are expecting probably Anthem to get that information to us maybe by the second week of August. A little over a month from the end of a health plan. That would be great. That would be really good. But we did have some employees who had by June had already met their deductibles, and so they needed credit in their account. So we're still working with some employees on that. Some that have said, "Wow, I thought for sure that I'd get us your last EOB and call customer service. They'll be happy to print you off one if you can't." You can still get into your account at Anthem, but maybe it's just quicker to call customer service. So anyway, those are sorts of the things that I've got going on and to report to you. And what do you guys have for me?
Mike, Todd? Oh,
Okay, good.
We're good to go.
Even with the Larry and Dottie show. Okay,
Yeah.
we're good. Give you guys an extra few minutes to
Right.
regroup.
We can get into some other business here real quick.
That's right. Yeah, get into some more business. So, all righty, see ya.
Have a good one. Okay, I don't think we had any claims, did we? No claims. Minutes.
Move to approve.
Second?
A motion to approve and a second, the minutes, additional comments. Oh. No, this is just for minutes for last week. Yeah. Motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Minutes are approved. Travel.
Move to approve travel.
Second also.
Motion second to approve travel. Additional comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the same. Travel is approved.
I will probably have the policy updates and all the new travel stuff ready to approve for next week.
Okay. Okay, security, automation systems, highway video.
I'm not quite ready for that. We had, Jack has an email out for the new labor cost to install those, and they are waiting for a response from, I believe, Wellers for that number, so I'm not quite ready for that yet.
Okay,
Solar electric? Yeah. No, they did that kind of work.
I didn't either.
They're pretty versatile.
Yeah.
okay, miscellaneous. Anything, Todd?
Had an economic development meeting. We did talk about broadband a little bit, which is interesting. The surf networks coming to DeKalb County, they're the ones that Ben had the problem with on the side of the road.
Yep.
But there's a
Drainage
thought.
board too.
Yeah, drainage board. There's a thought that the whole county could be covered by towers. Now, this would be just for the towers. It'd be 8 towers would cover the county for under $1 million. That don't include the backdrop, or the backhaul, as you call it,
Yeah.
that would be fibered each one, but you might be able to do the whole county, including the backhaul, for a couple million or less, and have adequate, high speed for everyone. And they tested on a lake up there, and I believe, now this is a lake, which is easy to go across, but I'm thinking they had speeds around the 700 or 800 megabit range.
Not bad.
That's 10 times better than I get through AES, on the cheaper plan. But it was a good discussion, and there's some technology is going to solve this issue. I don't think it's going to have to be fiber to the premise. I really don't. From what we discussed, there's going to be a hybrid plan of some sort in there, I think.
Yeah, I think there's certainly,
There's a lot of other avenues
Yeah.
they're talking about too, but that was a big one that.
Metalink's
Yep.
doing a tower out by Spencerville.
Yeah, Metalink and Surf.
Where AT&T pulled service out of there.
Yeah, and I think Lakeland, I believe also, is it Lakeland or Lakeview? Lakeland, I believe.
Lakeland, that's,
Yeah.
no, that's not Chuck Shurak's, Lakeland's.
But they're a player, I
Yeah,
know, but.
yeah, they're
But
definitely.
anyway,
a
there's,
player,
it sounds like we're getting somewhere,
Yeah,
so,
Good, good.
yep.
Save some money.
Yeah, yeah, and get good high-speed internet for folks, so.
Yeah. Anything else? Mike?
and something, I just went away.
We'll
I'll come back to it.
We'll come back. Andrew?
Yes, well, we have the new lawsuit filed by Todd Land. I have submitted that to our liability insurance carrier. And they're looking through that to see if we have coverage, because I think some of the issues and the way that they're brought up in the complaint against the county here would be something coverable by the insurance. But we'll just have to see what they say. Hopefully they'll decide it today or tomorrow and let us know. But otherwise, we'll get an answer on file
Hey,
to the case. it is asking for an injunction, which those cases and hearings are typically expedited. So there could be hearings on it that are scheduled relatively quickly. Whenever somebody asks for an injunction, that's something that they accelerate through the court system. Just to give you a heads up on that.
Okay. Thank you, Andrew. Susan?
Okay. I did not print this for everybody, but it was in your email. I had provided the Dark Council on Aging checklist that we have to do each year. So I have filled out what we've done so far, and then there's a few things at the bottom that still need to be done. That would include like an on-site visit, a cleanliness check of the vehicles, ride along with one of the people. So we just need to have one of you at least complete the rest of the items before the end of this year. So I'll keep that to help remind, but we do need to get that done.
Yeah.
And then we had an email this weekend from Rick that he would like into the record of the meeting, and that says, Commissioners, a reminder, the council will be addressing the future financial needs of the Highway Department at the August 8th council meeting regarding the possible implementation of an excise and wheel tax. As the county executive body, it is the responsibility of the commissioners to advise the council of the financial needs of the Highway Department. On July 14th, I emailed a message to Ben Parker, Highway Supervisor, copied to the commissioners and council, suggesting the information the council will need to make a decision on excise and wheel tax. Working together, the commissioners and council can provide and maintain safe roads and bridges in DeKalb County. We briefly discussed it last week, but I wasn't sure if there was anything more to discuss.
I think Ben gave him kind of pretty much what he needs. One of the things he asked for too, though, is how many miles of roads we might want to convert, but.
Yeah, I think they want a little bit tighter plan, and then kind of rethinking that from last week's discussion that, as Don Stuckey reminds us frequently, it's up to the commissioners to make proposals and the council to decide about funding them. So I can understand where they're coming from in terms of saying we need to know what the commissioners want the highway department to have in terms of funding so that they can decide or at least discuss what to do with the wheel tax in terms of whatever formula they use. So now Ben and Brad, excuse me, Brad Stump had helped Ben quite a bit put some numbers and so forth together. So I suspect with a little help from Brad, Ben could probably come up with something a little more specific that would give the council kind of what they're looking for. But the downside is they need it by next Tuesday.
I think, that would be up to Ben. I mean,
Yeah,
he knows the projects he might want to get done. I mean, it's kind of difficult for us to say because we'd take $20 million.
yeah,
If we could get it.
Yeah.
And we could spend it. There would be no problem spending that kind of money. But obviously, that's not going to happen, not overnight anyway. It's going to have to be spread out over 20 years or whatever. But yeah, this is in Ben's court.
yeah.
And I think that's between him and the council, really. I don't know what we can provide.
I think
that would
it's
be
a
more
little different
specific.
though, because
Excuse
you
me.
guys are ahead of
Excuse me.
Ben.
Excuse me. I think, he needs to provide us with that, or provide the council with that.
Yeah. Well, and, I certainly would be nice if we could take a look at whatever he's proposing
Yeah.
next week at the meeting and just kind of have a chance for input and so
Yeah,
forth.
I agree.
but
But he needs to initiate it.
Yeah.
And he figures out what he wants to do, what he can do.
Mm-hmm.
He spends everything that he's got to do as much as he can do, and then that's it. He's done, it's kind of a dead-end thing.
Well, and the key too you hit there is what can he do? And it's like Ben said, he goes, Todd, you can throw all the money at me you want, but we're not gonna be doing 10 miles of road a year. We don't have the capacity, the planning, the engineering. There's so much that goes into it. You don't just get asphalt and throw it on the road and say, look, it's done.
Right.
I mean, we've seen by the County Road 56 project how crazy this can get. And so I get what the council is saying. I think the guidance is there. They know we could take as much money as they can give us, so it's up to them at that point how much they want to raise taxes. We can, like you said, we could take $20 million.
Yeah.
So I think realistically, it'd be nice to do 2 or 3 miles of roads a year, of conversion if possible.
Yeah.
And I think that's possible, but I don't think it's gonna be much more than that. Because
Right.
we have a hard time even keeping up with what we have, just from a manpower standpoint. We don't have the
Manpower.
manpower.
Yeah.
'Cause-
Well, just having some sort of goal.
Yeah.
I think a couple,
To
yeah.
work with, I think
But-
is a good
One thing
idea.
you've got to realize, we put more money towards roads. It's not all going to go specifically to roads. I mean, we'll off the wheel tax, but somewhere we're going to have to hire more manpower.
Right.
So some of that money, whatever the increase might be from another source, has to pay for the extra help to do the extra jobs. So it's not a clear definition of what's going to go to the road, what's got to go to the labor to do the roads.
Yeah.
And of course, they come out of different pots, but
And the-
Susan,
the
you
other-
had a
The other
comment.
part of that calculation, just real quick, is that wheel tax also can be used for bridge work.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we talked with Ben before about some shortfalls in
Right.
bridge funding and so forth, and Cume Bridge and so forth, so that needs to be part of the calculation.
My comment was, I felt that it was a little different because you guys are ahead of Ben. He's not an elected official, he's a department head. So, like, things that come from elected offices, we go in to request and explain and everything with the council. But I'm thinking that it's a little different because you guys are over those departments to find out what they're needing and what kind of requests they're wanting and things like that. I think it is a little different.
Well, and he explained that to us, what he needed, and I said, we'll just turn that over to council then, because he can explain it a lot better than I can as far as the funds and, how these funds are funded and where we can spend 50%
Right.
here, 50% there. He has all these calculations in his head,
Right.
what we're gonna be short, and I think he can present that. Now, we gotta give guidance what we would like to do above that.
Yeah, well, and we need to just take a look at it and approve what he presents to
Yeah.
council. I think Ben's by far more qualified, or Brad Stump, to make the presentation to council, but I think
Yeah.
it has to be.
We gotta know about
We
it,
have
though.
to have,
Yeah.
be behind it.
No, I agree with that, but I think, like I said, one of the questions council had was how many roads do we want to hard surface? Well, Ben said, Todd, this is a 50 to 100-year project to get them all done. This isn't 10 years, it isn't 20, it's at least 50. We have 230 miles of gravel roads, even at 3 miles a year, do the math.
And I think there are probably a good number of those miles that are never.
Never gonna be done, they have one
Right.
house every mile on them or
Yeah,
something,
yeah.
yeah. No, I agree, so.
Okay, John Cruz.
We contacted him because I noticed in his email, he said he was instructed to be here at 9:30, but I had him down for 9.
Yeah,
So
I think I
he's
put him down
gonna-
at 9:30, I thought.
He's gonna come as quickly as he can. We contacted him about 10 minutes ago.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I put 9:30 on the 31st as confirmed. Second floor courthouse. I wonder how we got him on at 9.
I have him at
Goes
9.
On the agenda at 9.
Oh, okay. I guess I should read the agenda.
It's all right. So he'll be coming, but that's why he's not exactly here.
All right,
Okay,
It's Todd's fault.
I'm sorry. Won't be the first time.
okay. Well, let's
That's all right.
move on through miscellaneous. In that case, what else you
I
got?
think that's all I have.
Okay, I've got a couple. The well house out the county farm, of course, is shot. And I come up with the idea of using a water storage tank, insulate that, put over that well. We got that ball moving. I know we didn't approve it yet, but I had the opportunity to buy this tank. Instead of $1,800, it got bought for $450. Yeah,
Yeah,
Oh, really? I thought it was 800, 450?
$450.
Wow.
Yeah, it's there on that receipt.
I think, I was
Can't
thinking,
beat that.
Yeah, it's $450. Anyway, we'll need
no, it
the,
was 240.
oh, 240.
Yeah, I was thinking it was less than
Yeah,
Wow.
240.
240.
They're 1,800 out at Home Depot. So we'll get that prepped. I've started getting that prepped. And Larry and Evan are going to help me set that when I get it ready. I'm going to have, get it insulated. And that should be an airtight situation where there's no air filtration. That was a problem with the other warehouse. Too much air going through it. Couldn't keep it warm. The ground actually froze. It actually froze the pipe underground because the frost come in underneath that thing.
Really?
Yeah, that wasn't big enough. So anyway, we got that moving along, but we need a motion to purchase that tank.
I'll make that motion.
A lot of money, Bill.
A lot of money. Well, the installation, we probably ought to include the installation on that, and
Yeah.
that's probably 1,500.
You made a
And-
motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion
Second.
to,
Okay, a motion second. Additional comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carries.
Wait, how big is that well out there? Is that a 6-inch?
6 inch. No, it's 4.
Just a 4?
Yeah.
Single
That's
pump?
just on the south side.
Oh, on just that
Yeah,
only
there's
runs
two
the south
wells.
side, okay.
Yeah, there's 2 wells.
All right, all right.
Yeah. The south side goes into a well house, a supply tank, and all the electronics and stuff.
Is the well house for both wells or just one?
Just one.
Okay, what about the other well? How is it protected, or is it?
The other well is a submersible on the north side, and that goes into the basement.
So that's on a pitless adapter then?
That's a pitless
Okay,
adapter
yeah,
into the
okay.
basement.
Yeah,
there's
that
nothing-
makes sense.
Nothing exposed there. The south side, all it furnishes is the water for the cattle, basically. Or if he sprays, if he's going to be spraying, he'll pull water out of that
Makes sense.
for the crops. Okay, next thing I have is the county farm pond. Situation where the previous surveyor drained that pond down below the previous level, and we have a fish kill. And we have a situation of, appraised value of that property with the pond down and the fish kill is going to be decreased and diminished. So I talked to the drainage board, to the surveyor last Thursday, and he has agreed to raise that outlet structure and bring that pond back up maybe as much as they can and keep it from overflowing, have some reserve in it. So we might get maybe 18 inches increase, maybe 2 foot, I'm not sure.
Such an increase?
Yeah. And that'll make a big difference. Because I don't recall any fish kill ever out there before when that pond was up
yeah.
at higher
Well,
level.
some of those depths were 6 inches.
Yeah.
In a lot of that area. So going along with that, that was part of what I forgot I was going to
Yeah.
talk about. The city's position is they don't really think that that they're going to worry about having a reappraisal done or anything with the pond the way it is. And their idea with that, and this is all part of an MOU with Parkview, is they want to end up with a pond probably 12, 15 feet deep. And during all of that construction out there, they'll need fill anyway, so their idea would be, if we sell that to the city, they'll just dip it out, get the depth they want, and if they need to, they can put another structure 20 feet into the outlet with a valve where they can control
Oh,
the depth anyway.
the depth.
Yeah, but if they dip it out, it'll have more than enough capacity, and
Okay,
so, I think we can operate on that premise at the moment and not have to do any work to it and
okay.
see where we go. But they're proceeding with the idea. They want to go ahead and move on that.
Oh,
The
okay.
other thing that they inquired about was, and this is kind of just preliminary discussion so far, but if we would be interested in leasing any parking spaces to the city at the Union and 9th and Union and 10th Street lots, if we had any extra capacity there.
Union Ninth, the annex built? No.
Yeah, behind the
Yeah,
annex.
that's
Oh,
across the
yeah.
street
And
from,
across.
from Chris's office.
Oh, okay.
And then the one behind the annex, or south of the annex building,
Behind the Moose there, right? Or no, not
No,
the Moose,
no,
behind
no.
the,
behind the, just straight south of
behind the
annex,
building there.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
across 10th Street.
Would they want permanent? I mean, they're looking for parking spots for employees, or what are they looking for?
Well, I think they're looking at contingencies on the Credent Wealth parking.
Ah, I see.
Which park?
Credent
For
Wealth.
the parking for Credent Wealth, you know, they put in that temporary lot there next to Cedar Creek.
Right.
But that has to be returned back to the original condition by the end of '24.
Right.
So they're looking at some alternatives for, you know, their commitment to Credent for parking spaces. So just a preliminary thought, not looking for any kind of decision right away.
Right,
Just an
right.
idea of,
I think there's maybe a possibility on a year-by-year basis,
Yeah.
because we don't know what's going to happen, when it's going to happen
Right.
with the health department,
Yeah.
because that would be some parking available.
Right.
exactly.
But, yeah, I think there is some spaces available there.
Yeah,
Sure.
Yeah.
We could probably work with them, I would think.
Yeah.
fair enough.
Okay. All right.
That segues in real quick, if you don't mind, Bob Hardy pointed out to me when we bored holes in the parking lot in front of the sheriff's office there, he went and poured sand in them because the lady about broke her ankle in there, I guess. So he at least got them up, and I guess we need to patch those holes where they did the borings. They were never permanently
Patch.
patched, so that's something we ought to, who do we, Larry, can Larry or someone handle that? Or
Probably.
Just, it isn't gonna take much, but
No, I
we
mean,
gotta have a solid top there, though, if someone get hurt.
Yeah. Yeah, that wouldn't take much to do. Just a
Pour some rock in
motor
there.
box and mix up some
Yeah, yeah.
motor. and put into
Quickcrete
that.
or something, or, yeah.
They're not going to settle anymore, fortunately. They should be done settling.
I would hope, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll maybe talk to Larry on the way out and ask him if he could take care of that, or
Okay.
find someone that can.
Right.
Last thing. We talked a few weeks back about the city's new containers for the trash
Oh, yes.
barrels and so forth. So they have solved the problem of the businesses and everybody having to take the things out. The street department is doing all that
Oh,
now. So, you know, nobody would have to worry about it. So they're just asking if we would reconsider setting those out if we didn't have to worry about doing actually taking the cans out of those containers and putting them back in.
What's the problem again? I know they
They-
put the little fences around them,
the city
decorative
wanted to set them
fences.
in the middle of our walks, out towards the end, the sidewalk, the entrances that go out
Oh, yeah,
to the street. They wanted to set them in the center
okay.
of each one of those.
Yeah. I wouldn't think the center would be a very good spot. Maybe off the
Off the
side
side.
would be better. But part of the problem was they were expecting each business owner or whoever to pull the cans out on garbage day and then put them back in for
but
pickup, but now they've got the street department handling that. And also, just, which isn't really relevant to anything, but they've got a program now where they're getting those washed and disinfected once a month during the spring, summer, and fall.
I gotta admit, it does look nicer.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, I
It's nice.
think if the street department's willing to do it, I don't have any problem with it.
Okay.
There was a suggestion of, you know where they are now? So there was a suggestion of like having that corner cut out and built in so it could sit in there and not like be in the middle of anything. But the problem with that is these open in the back.
Yeah,
So they wouldn't be able to get them out. So I know that was another
Should
discussion.
have pull them out.
yeah,
Yeah. I think they're off the side. Consensus?
Yeah.
yeah, I think so, yeah.
Okay,
I don't have a problem with it.
okay. Let's off the side. John, good morning. I understand there's a little miscommunication on the time, but we'll get you in now. You can step up to the podium there and
You make sure that
mic-
mic's on there. It should be a light.
Are we alive?
Yes,
You
you're
are
live.
Fantastic.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Is the floor mine?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, well,
All
thank
yours.
you for listening to me. I am here today to talk to you about Opportunity Boulevard, which is part of American Heritage Village, which we commonly refer to now primarily as Cruz Plaza. And this will be, or about 4.5 years ago, we were able to acquire that property, which, if you might recall at the time, was in a downward spiral. And we were, looking at, including myself, not really thinking I would end up with that, we'd have what had been a neat asset, frankly, with both sides of the interstate out there, and maybe not have much of anything going on in our gateway. So I think that you might recall I stood before you here briefly covering what we were trying to figure out was the case here in 2019, and for various reasons, not the least of which was the COVID situation. A lot of those things got tabled, but in a lot of ways, I'm glad that happened, because rather than standing before you as I did then, projecting what I hoped we might be able to start to do, we've been able to prove it for the last 4.5 years. So as I mention what we have done, and I suggest what we're trying to do, hopefully I will have some credibility in what we're attempting to accomplish. And what we have accomplished, if I'm not mistaken, I believe we have brought more people to the campus of Cruz Plaza than any other facility or location in our county in the last 4.5 years. And my vision for the future, first and foremost, while we are operating on a weekly, daily basis, monthly basis with a lot of events, specifically, I love weddings. If you don't know that about me, I got married on Valentine's Day. Marriage is tough, but I love it. I have a spectacular wife, and so we love helping folks as they, launch their families through that. But the corporate events, a place where we can have for our communities to gather for milestone events, is something that's very near and dear to my heart, and I think we've been able to create that. I'm super proud that we can do that in Auburn and in DeKalb County, and we've been able to have a lot of nonprofit events and have a place. Many of you might be familiar with Tim Tebow's Night to Shine for intellectually disabled folks, and it's a prom, and it had been out at County Line Church, and it kind of outgrown it, and we're the only facility where you can have something like that for that many people, and so we were happy to provide that at no charge at all. It actually cost us a little money because we had some staff and stuff there, but we're really grateful to be in a position that while we're a for-profit and we want to not just pay taxes, but we want to make money, we can stay in business. Part of the reason for being in business is so that we're able to do things like that for folks that are not able to do it for themselves. As we're doing all those events, my favorite thing to do, of course, outside of being married, is to really build on our heritage in Auburn. And I'm a people person first. I'm an auction person second, I'm a car person third, but being able to conduct the Auburn auction is something I really love. And while we have been, as our auction company, Worldwide Auctioneers, if we aren't aware of that, we started that 21 years ago here in Auburn, and we have been conducting our exclusive boutique event for many, many years now. But last year, with the departure of RM and their group, there wasn't anybody else. So we went ahead and expanded, and we had what I don't know how else to describe other than a magical event. And if you've been to events, maybe it's a sporting event, a concert, or certainly other type of an event, you can feel whether or not there's any electricity in the room. And we had that, and we set a bunch of world records. Matter of fact, in the 53-year history, we had the second highest grossing auction ever. As our first expanded one, we've been able to build off of that this year. We had about 5 times as many people as we planned for, which was a little bit of a logistical train wreck, but it was great to get phone calls and texts, specifically Saturday morning, from some folks who hadn't been back to Auburn or who had but hadn't quite been feeling the excitement that we all have experienced in the past through the Labor Day auction, and getting those texts saying, I-69 hasn't been backed up here for 15, 20 years. I'm going to wait in line for an hour just to get into this place. What's going on? Go get your crap together. So we have made some logistical changes so that we can take, and I would like to think we're prepared for the crowds that may come. I don't know. Maybe it'll be crazy. If it is, we'll deal with it, and that'll be a good thing. And we have our what we call our street team. So we've been all over the Midwest, every state. We have a huge event this weekend in Kentucky. We've been to Wisconsin, Michigan, Illinois, Ohio, kind of really focusing on our Midwest stuff. But our goal is to build off of our heritage and build something that's newer and better. And I think as I look back over the last 24 years, when my uncle sold what we knew as the Cruise Auction Park or the Cruise Auction Company to eBay. And it's kind of just sort of been a little bit of a declining buzz for 20 plus years. And that's in the industry. The plus for our county and our area is that there's been some diversification. I think maybe a lot of us are just like, oh, well, we have that. It's great. I don't know if I'd say take it for granted, but a lot of diversification has gone on, which is wonderful, but there is zero replacement for global recognition and national significance that only comes from that auction. And I would say that the Auburn auction on Labor Day weekend, for those of us that might be basketball fans in Indiana, of course, we love all Indiana schools, but I'll use Indiana University as an illustration. And the IU men's basketball program is still the most impactful marketing frontman, whatever you want to call it, for, frankly, a lot of stuff in Indiana, and certainly for that university. And I think our auction is that. We have some super significant plans for that. And so as I think about that, and I think about the property, my request is a stacked request with the Redevelopment Commission, and that is that we get the road that services this entire development up to the standards that it ought to be, so that we can hopefully match the upward trajectory of the development and the facility to the roads. As of today, as I have spent quite a bit of time in the last few years, I don't believe I have the ability on my own to actually do it. There's a little discrepancy on who owns the road. I did send in an original plat. I don't know if you have that available. And we were looking and we may have found what we were looking for, which up on the top left, just read it to you real quickly. It's a little small here.
You've got
'cause I
good eyes.
Didn't have my device that I can read a little better here, but it says here, all streets shown and not herefore dedicated are hereby dedicated to the public. So I believe it was the original intent of everyone involved at the time that the roads that are platted at American Heritage Village would belong to the public, which, since we're in the county, I think that's the county. The Redevelopment Commission has expressed some agreeance that they would participate in correcting that. Just as a reminder, I have had GME testing out. They did, I think, 16 different borings all over the property to confirm the general quality of construction, which is there. And just again, as a reminder, the top coat of the road was never put on. So the base binding is 2 county standards, as I understand it. There is one significant small area that would need a little bit more repair than just a normal resurfacing. And so as we go through that, I have spoken to the adjoining landowners, of which there are multiple opinions of what should have happened, what's supposed to be there now. Rocky Smith from Tennessee, who owns quite a bit of that property, has expressed a little disappointment or frustration with, hey, I bought some property. It says there's a road on that plat, says Victory Lane, doesn't exist. And what we did do, I went ahead here a couple years ago and recorded an easement. So while Victory Lane doesn't exist, on the backside of the Cruise Plaza main building, we have a permanent easement. We're actually, for Labor Day, are actually going to paint a road. And so we did that because that gives permanent, not deeded, but permanent easement access to the Ford Museum as well as the Perpetual Industries building, so they're not landlocked and have no access. So we've tried to do everything that I think we were able to do, but we're kind of at a point where, in my opinion, as a community person, obviously I appreciate a landowner as part of this, but who owns the road? What should happen? And the obvious follow-up question, if I'm in your chair, and if it's myself or redevelopment, which are asking, hey, if we do this, if we get the road up to appropriate standards, will the county take the road? That's the bottom line question. And the follow-up to that is, well, who would maintain it later? Who would plow it? And understand those are important questions that must be asked. And I guess my thought to that in closing, I've been committed to our community. I've invested millions of dollars in that specific area. And I believe that if the county takes the road, and if down the road we are going to maintain it or plow it, that would be because we'll have had millions of people. We have already had, by our counts, as I keep track of events and attendance at the auction and that sort of thing, we've had about 700,000 people, and that includes a big chunk of that being through COVID times. So when I say we're going to have millions of people out there, that is not an exaggeration at all. I believe we may get close to that in a given year, much less over time. But if we're repairing that road in the future, I think it'll be for good reason. Because again, we'll have had millions of people using it for activities and events and economic impact and development that would be happening somewhere else, most likely not in DeKalb County at all, if they're not able to do that. I have lost a bunch of events. I've not been able to conduct quite a few events because of the condition of the road, particularly car related, because, if you've got a a brand new McLaren or a couple-year-old Ferrari. You don't want to drive out there if you don't have to, even though they'd like to, because it's a neat deal. We have a great car culture. And again, I would use that Indiana University illustration that the football team, the women's soccer team, the golf team, they all benefit tremendously from IU men's basketball. So being at the center, along with the museum, and certainly the festival and all the other great car things that we have, the flagship's still the auction. That's what brings people from all over the world, and that's what we're focused on continuing to grow. So I'm hoping, would again respectfully request that you as commissioners accept the idea and kind of deliberate and see if you might find it appropriate that pending the redevelopment commission, along with us landowners getting that road where it should be standard wise, that the county would accept that. So thank you for listening and hearing what I have to say.
Questions for John?
Would Rocky be interested in developing some of that property if the road was brought up to proper repair?
Yes, I have had many meetings with him and others, but specifically him, and he is very much open and would like to get some more of that developed. So would I. Not that this is a short-term financial concern to the county, but the way it would work, my taxes just at my building would pay for all of this. I think right now we'll see what final things are, but in roughly 10 or 12 years, if there was no additional development. But I think the idea is that certainly in the next 5 to 10 years, it could be the next year or two, that if we're able to draw that attention, that I think there's a high probability of additional development, more taxes, growth, and as the gateway to, the county and Auburn, I hope we can't control everything everywhere, but, to the extent that we're able, at least a big chunk of that can be something that maybe what we would want as a gateway. So the most shovel-ready development is actually right there. And if we get this done, you can build a hotel tomorrow on a couple of those lots, and those meetings have taken place and are continuing to go on. So yes, do I know exactly when? And well, I guess if we hope sooner, if we get that road in, it'll happen sooner than without.
Well, a hotel makes so much sense there. Wedding events, especially if people are drinking, they stay at the hotel, they don't drive, the house, car show. So I'd like to see some plans of people, or Rocky maybe, what he might develop out there. I think that would help the cause somewhat, bring more. Now, the other thing, the number one rule in Commissioner's Court, you never make us other married men look bad by telling how much you love your wife. So now I'm in trouble now, just so you know. So I really got to think about this. But no, I get it. I would look at this favorably, depending on what redevelopment says, and there is no doubt that brings in a huge amount of income here in DeKalb County and puts us on the map. So I think we ought to consider it for sure.
Yeah, and I agree. I really appreciate what you've been able to accomplish over the last couple of years, John, and very much appreciate the way you've worked with the nonprofits for meetings and so forth. It's a great situation. I think there are a couple of things that may need to be clarified, because believe it or not, I remember voting on the primary and secondary and development plan back in, 05 maybe, somewhere in there. Mm-hmm. So I know that the dean had some provisions for hotels and so forth laid out, but that is platted as a planned unit development. Mm-hmm. And it's in the city ETJ. Mm-hmm. So I think, and I have no idea what the what the decision is on this, but I guess you'd want to make sure that we know what the city would require, for instance, with Potter Drive on the other end, and other end of town, that was required to be done to city specs rather than county specs with curbs, gutters, lighting, and all of that. So that could put a different face on, and then obviously that's all done by the Auburn Planning and Development Commission. So just something that
A couple quick points on that. One, I would like to get this done yesterday, so I'm not trying to delay anything. But as we think about who, I can tell you, nobody has claimed anything, which is a little odd that we have a highly trafficked roadway that was originally dedicated to public use, and nobody knows who actually owns it. Hence why I don't think I could really do anything. I mean, I've been doing repairs and fixing potholes and that kind of stuff and spent quite a bit of money doing it. And no one's complained about it. So I think that's okay. But the second thing, the trail system has been, there's a lot of discussions and a lot of timelines, and certainly I don't control all those, but I have been approached by numerous folks that have suggested that Opportunity Boulevard in front of Cruz Plaza, in between that and the pond, if you will, and the tunnel, which is a great asset. I've met with the Department of Transportation, big government at its best. They were genuinely considering filling in the tunnel at a cost of between $3 and $4 million. And the folks who built the tunnel, met with them. So it's a 100+ year tunnel. And when you're in the tunnel, as I'm sure we'll all remember or have seen with concrete, there's a little bit of surface flaking, has zero to do with structural integrity, but it is hypothetically possible. Someone could be walking through the tunnel and a piece of concrete, thin shaving flakes off, gets in their eye or scratches their head or something. And so the DOT shut the tunnel for that purpose. It's probably estimated by the folks who built the tunnel and who also do quick repairs and all that kind of stuff that it's probably $75,000 to fix that. And for free, they would actually put up a often used netting system between now and when $75,000 might get spent on the tunnel, both of which would make it perfectly safe for, folks to walk in. So my question to the Department of Transportation guy was, so you're thinking about spending $3 or $4 million when $75,000 would fix it? And his response was, well, when you put it that way, it doesn't sound good, but yes, that's what we were thinking. So I would think, I don't know if I would choose to have a trail in front of the property, but we have that tunnel. So whether it's my first choice or not, that might be something. So as we look at that and as something might happen, the thought of the resurface and, the berms or the sides of the road, that might be something to keep in mind, not just for what the city might say and what the county might say, but also what might be more practical in the near future to have a cool trail functionality to that as well.
And there is some very serious conversation within the Pocobosh coalition about the tunnel and how that can fit in. So,
Okay, for the sake of time, I think we have the consensus here that we'd be willing to do that. I believe we need to bring Superintendent Parker into the conversation.
yeah, definitely.
And clarify details with the city as far as what would need to be done if they're going to require gutters and so forth out there. That's going to change. I'd assume there is none at this point.
No.
It's just curb
Correct.
and asphalt.
Yep.
Is that asphalt suitable to do the finished layer over, or would that have to be milled off?
So my understanding is there would be minimal prep work and then some of the repairs that are needed and then surface. So everyone that's looked at it, and I've had quite a few people look at it, asphalt people, et cetera, that it's in remarkably good shape and that it wouldn't be too challenging to do the resurface, depending on what everybody says on curbs and that sort of thing. We'd have to officially address that. But so with your conceptual consent, what the redevelopment commission asked me to do is speak to you. So is it appropriate for me to go back to them and say, hey, there's some receptivity there?
Yes,
Work out some details and let's get an actual
yes,
plan.
I think
Okay.
so.
that works.
Yeah.
Yes.
Who gets a hold of the city to find out if done? Okay, so don't forget that part.
That's me.
Maybe
Yes.
redevelopment could also ask
I
them.
think that's just a quick call to Kelly Now or Jim Catterat at Planning
Yeah.
and Development. They should be able to answer that pretty easily.
Okay.
And-
Thank you very
and
much.
A lot might have to do with, is there any standing water problems on that road at any time? And if you observe that, or if there isn't, that's maybe help clarify what needs to be done as far as drainage. And,
I drive on it almost every day and the drainage is great. It's laid out pretty well. And I don't recall splashing through any puddles on any of the property. So I think they did a pretty good job originally.
okay,
For just a base coat, it's really pretty smooth.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's finished.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, John,
Thank you very much.
you bet.
Thanks, John.
Have a good day.
Michelle, you are up. We had a little snafu with the schedule and the timing, so we ran a little bit over. I apologize.
No problem. So I have a lot of things going on, so I'll try to go quickly as I possibly can. A couple things that I don't think I actually asked to be on the schedule, but since I'm here, I'm going to bring them up. That's all right. First one is that the Department of Corrections contacted every county that has a residential program a couple months ago and said that the CDC has more COVID grant money that might be available. It seems like they're trying to figure out how to spend some of this money, but if it benefits us, I'm okay with that, I guess. So what we were supposed to do was send in some ideas of what we thought we could do with that would be possible COVID type mitigation. So if we ever ended up in similar situations in the future, we would be more prepared. And they gave a list of ideas of things that had been approved in the past for similar projects. So we took that list and sent back a quick email saying we would be interested in XYZ off this list. It would be beneficial for our program. And they said, we'll get back to you. Well, they have gotten back to us and they've given us about 3 weeks to turn in actual pricing, where we would get things from, and some different things like that. And so I attached the quick write-up that I did about what would happen with that money. Our biggest ask is obviously going to be a full body scanner, similar to one they have at the jail, that they have at most jails. The person steps in, it does a quick scan of them and helps you detect if they have any contraband or anything on them. And it allows you to do that without our staff having to come close enough to them to possibly catch something, that being the idea. This particular scanner, which is one of the most widely used ones, comes with thermal detection. So it also gives you the person's body temperature, so you would know as soon as you scan them whether they possibly were feverish or not. It's a $20,000 add-in, but it's in the price of the quote that I received from the company because they're aware of this funding. They've had other people receive their scanners in the same way. Some other things we had on there were just extra cleaning supplies, a power washer to help us keep bathroom areas cleaner, touchless water dispensers, so that right now the water dispenser we have, everyone has to touch the handle. And so if there's any kind of illness going around, that's why those are approved, is so we don't have everybody touching the same surfaces all the time. This particular grant, obviously, like I said, they gave us a really quick turnaround on getting information back to them. It's actually due, all of it's due tomorrow. And the good news about this one is there's no reporting. There's going to be no follow-up from them as far as, because sometimes when you do a grant, you have to turn in data metrics and all these different things. This is not going to be that way. The most we would expect from it is maybe just an audit to make sure that we had receipts showing we spent the money where we told them we were going to spend it. So just wanted to come and see if there was any objection to me filing and putting in to see if we can get any of these items from the CDC.
What do you think, gentlemen?
Problem with it, I'm not so sure of the scanner with the temperature things. The scanner's a good idea. It'd have to work better than the ones I've seen. I mean, my wife works where they take your temperature and it reads 180 one time and 79 the next time or whatever. I'm blowing that up, but seriously though, I'd be curious to see, because it was $20,000 more for that feature. Did you
Yes.
say? I mean, I know it's free money per se, but it's never free, and I'd like to see the data on that machine, how accurate it really is, because what are you going to do with the person if they look a little feverish? Not going to let them in?
Well, as we had been doing it, we actually had other thermometers and we were scanning everyone's temperature as they walked in the door.
Right.
So this is just going to kind of be a pre-scan. If there was to be any issue or it looked like they were high, we would follow it up with, an actual reading.
Yeah. Okay.
Is this fully funded or is this a match?
It's fully funded.
They're fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have a problem with it.
I'm okay with it.
Okay. I think
Somebody
you
want to make a
have,
motion?
Do we need a motion for that to proceed?
I would, just because it's part of the grant and
Okay.
they
So the
have to
motion needs to
come.
be to allow her to proceed for the grant, correct?
Yeah.
So moved.
Second.
a motion is second. Any additional comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, the same. Motion carries. Proceed with your application.
So the next two things that I have are all personnel related. I think Dottie brought one of them up to you as far as maintenance position. We're having trouble filling the maintenance position. It's part-time right now. It's fairly low pay for someone that you expect to have any kind of skills and qualifications to do maintenance work. So we kind of, meaning we met with Dottie and Brian from Central was also at the meeting. We also spoke to Angela from Sunny Meadows just to see what she had been doing for maintenance, because we knew she also isn't covered by any of the folks that work up here at the courthouse and the annex. And our thought being, if we could figure out a way to make that into a full-time position that is then shared between those other buildings, it helps us all out, and it allows us to get somebody that's, more qualified to kind of help us cover things. As it is right now, we have only received applications at Community Corrections for our part-time position that don't show many qualifications at all to actually deal with some of the problems we have. And I know I've talked to Brian Hummer in the past about his need for some maintenance out at his building, things he's trying to cover on his own. I did also speak with Ben at the Highway Department, but they are very handy out there, so he doesn't feel the need for any assistance. I kind of assumed that how it was, but I didn't want to make that assumption for him. But he confirmed. He's like, yeah, we've got it under control. So what we had met with Dottie and what we had talked about was filling out one of the job classification papers with the idea that this person would be full-time and also that they would receive a higher wage than what I'm able to offer at this time, and kind of taking the money that I have earmarked, I guess, for the maintenance part-time position, as well as some part-time money that Central has in their budget, and trying to pool it and then asking for the county to cover the rest and the benefits. And then we'd have that person to share amongst all the buildings. So I don't know that I really need action on that one today, just kind of giving an update, because I know Dottie had said she'd already brought it up. So kind of wanted to let you know how we're going with that conversation and what our thought pattern is, I guess.
I have one thought just come to mind, snow removal. That person be responsible for snow removal at all three facilities?
I think that would require a little more conversation, because they would have to have equipment to do that with, which I don't have and I don't believe Central has. So if there were equipment for them to do that with, I think that's something that could happen, which then, obviously frees up additional money that we're spending on snow contracts. So
The only problem with that, though, is they can't be at all three at the same time.
Right.
Correct.
So getting it cleared off, they'd have to start fairly early and move to each different location to accomplish that. But I can see a possibility. What do you guys think?
It takes some coordination, but it's possible it could work.
I think,
As far as that goes, although I don't know that by the time you figure equipment and everything in, if they could do it as cheap as Jim Irwin's doing it now. So,
Yeah.
I think on the snow removal, you have a hard time because we get really 3 or 4 snows a year that require
Yeah.
real removal. But I'd like to see a true maintenance department in the county instead of each building having their own maintenance man, except for like the jail has to have.
Yeah.
They gotta have their maintenance
Somebody
guy
on
there.
site, yeah.
You know, and you're 24/7 too, but I think I think we need to have some better maintenance department, a qualified person or two that understands electrical, plumbing, the things that lights, fixtures. To give you an idea, you had failures of lights a year and a half ago, and really no one didn't know how to source them. And we can't have, it can't be a retirement job anymore. Someone's got to be able to get on the ladder. Someone's got to be able to do the heavier lifting that's required. Crawling up in the attic is needed. So, you know, not that I don't appreciate the folks that were
No.
retiring, but let's face it, maintenance is a younger man's job if you're going to be very successful at it. So I'd like to see us pursue a multi-building maintenance plan where we have someone to oversee it if possible.
Okay.
I think that's a good point of discussion.
Yeah, it's something,
And
place to
move
start.
toward that. That would also move us more toward having a central list of
Yes.
outside contractors to call so that you're not doing this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, but, you know, you can make better financial arrangements too.
And ultimately, it leads to a county manager position, in my opinion, to where this is taken care of efficiently. And,
And that's down the road.
Well, that's down the
somewhere,
road.
too,
I'm just
but-
saying, I
But I
see-
think that's a good solution
Yeah.
to this multi-facility
Yeah.
maintenance issue.
yep, agreed.
Let's dig deeper into this and do some investigation and
Yeah.
we'll figure out how to move forward.
That doesn't help you for tomorrow, but
Well, we still,
We were laughing because I've been maintenance recently. I've been the one trying to figure out how to get in the attic and things like that, so I'd really
Not
appreciate
fun,
it.
you don't want to.
Yeah, I really didn't want to. And we, obviously, you know, we do have some ongoing issues with plumbing and things at community corrections, so it's been interesting trying to function without a dedicated maintenance person, I will
Right.
say that.
let's,
I think the chair of the advisory board is supposed to do that.
I'll let him know you said that. I was lucky, and I would like to give Larry a little bit of props because I did call him on a Saturday morning because we had a leak coming through the ceiling around a light fixture. And it was the same Saturday that he was up at the annex with the exterminators, is that what they're
yeah,
called?
right.
And he actually came out and tried to determine what it was for me, and he actually did go on the roof and caulk around a vent for us, and I think that solved it. But I think it was just lucky that he was out and about that day because otherwise it probably would have been me on the roof, and I'm not really qualified for that, I'm going to be honest, so.
Yeah. It's something we'll have to address sooner than later.
Yeah, don't get on the roof.
We can't just
That's not
put
a good idea.
Move that up the priority list, but
Yeah,
I think we'd have better luck hiring somebody to do a
Yep.
number of
Yes.
of buildings than we would as a
yeah.
part-time to replace Noel.
Absolutely. Anyone that's serious in maintenance, that they're going to want to make decent money and be full-time.
How many hours was Noel working?
He was keeping under 28.
Okay.
Part. I do have, so I guess, I know he would like to say something as well, but let me know if you would like us to continue because I've already typed up a kind of a job position description. It's actually much closer to the one for the jail maintenance position than it is to Larry's after we looked at everything. And I did have my financial manager go ahead and run some numbers of what we thought was more of a fair wage and how much that would actually cost. So if you need any of that, I can definitely send it to you.
Yeah.
Or if you'd like us to continue with the process, I guess just let me know what you want to do next step-wise.
I came mostly because Ms. Fosnon being here during that building process. You guys know exactly how specialized some of the equipment is out there. The plumbing, the heating, at the very beginning, the ice machine by itself, the freezers out there. if, with that part-time maintenance, which they got unbelievably lucky with Noel out there with the ability of what he was able to do out there. But as you go forward, I'm concerned that what they had wage-wise wouldn't be able to bring in somebody who could do that. So ultimately, you're just paying for somebody to go, oh, yeah, that's broke. I'm going to call somebody else with a huge amount of that. Then you take into consideration what the overall cost and the investment of the county has in that building, and to say, Director Fosnaw's getting calls in the middle of the week and saying there's a leak in the roof, and no way to get up there, no ability to get up there, diagnose it, or change that. That's something she knows better than to do, obviously. But then you have some of the other things that we were forced with, even at the very beginning. Tree across the road, and all of us making calls. Whose responsibility is that? Is that ours? Is that county? Is that city? And all of that. So I just came mostly to say, we have some job expectations for her, but ultimately none of those are covered. So the sooner rather than later does protect our investment, and please keep into considerations how specialized some of those are. You brought it up. The jail, they have their own, because some of that equipment is specific to what they do. Much like theirs, the security equipment, camera equipment, heating for the showers, and all the rest of that stuff is specialized for them as well.
Okay. You have anything else, Michelle?
I do. So
5 minutes. We have break and pledge. You can come back after if you need to.
I was here, I'm not sure how long ago, asking about our instructor position. So we are going to start having an instructor to teach some more classes. It's part of our evidence-based practices. It's part of what we need to do to help with rehabilitation of our participants out there. As we worked through that, you guys have already approved our contract that we came up with for that instructor to invoice us for the classes that are taught. So what we did was we transferred money, and that's also already been approved, from what was in like a payroll 100 series down to what we have as contracts for us, which is like a 300 series. And so that's all ready to go, and that's all approved. What has happened since then is we actually have a full-time employee who is interested in also fulfilling that duty as the instructor. And what we talked about with that person was, obviously this is going to have to happen on top of your regular clocked in hours. This is something that you would not clock in for. You would invoice us by class, just like we were going to have an outside person do, so that we're sure we're keeping it completely separate. We did check with Susan and Dottie as far as, do they see that as any kind of issue with, does it necessarily automatically become an overtime issue or what? Dottie, I hate to speak for her because she's not here, but she said she didn't think it would be, because it's being invoiced by class instead of being considered a part of somebody's duties, something that would be overtime. Susan was thinking about it. I'm not sure if she made it any farther on her thoughts, or if there was something she needed to look up. But basically what we're coming for is to make sure that we're on the kind of the right process and thought process there, as far as, is it a possibility for a full-time person to do this, as long as they're not clocked in, and as long as they're invoicing by class for it, just like we would have had, an outside party do.
Susan? It's on you.
So my biggest thing is whether it can be very black and white, as when the full-time employee is clocked in and when they're not clocked in, because if it is during normal work hours, it is going to be part of federal wage and hour, and it is going to have to go towards overtime. So as long as you guys approve the person to have two positions, even though the contractual service isn't an actual position paid through the county, as long as it is very clear, and if state board comes and wants me to be able to tell them that, yep, they weren't on the clock and they were doing this and it's visible, then I wouldn't have a problem with it, but it's going to have to be extremely detailed.
So they would have to, is this the candidate, are they currently an hourly employee?
Yes.
They're paid hourly,
Yes.
not by, okay.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
and they're full-time because they're hourly position, but if they clock out, they're not gonna be making their hours, and then are gonna be charging a fee for their services for the instruction? Is
From
that-
my understanding, they'll work their full-time, and then these classes would be in the evening or maybe
Oh,
weekend
so
or
they would still
something?
work their full-time,
Yes, correct. So actually, the way we have it set up, we have 1 day a week at community corrections where some of our employees work later. And so we have it set that the morning classes would happen in that morning before that person is expected to be clocked in. And then they work a 12 to 8 that day. So they would clock in for the 12 to 8. And then we'd have evening classes another day of the week after they had clocked out from their full-time.
And then those classes would come to us on an invoice to pay
well,
contractually.
just so, for federal standards, I've been through this many times, that, I see no problem with this as long as they truly are a private contractor for their services they're providing, which means they're self-directed, and they handle it all themselves, and I think you gotta be careful there, because you can be in violation of wage laws if you,
I have concerns just from the wage law standpoint. If
Yeah.
federal standards are applying, there's a rule that, for example, if you're working for a nonprofit, you can't work your 40 hours and then even volunteer another 5 hours for free, let's say, or for a lower rate or something like that without
see.
being paid overtime, because they put regulations into effect, because there would be employers that would take advantage of that. So my initial thought is that this wouldn't be a legal setup,
Right.
but I mean, maybe
well, and
other people are
again,
able to do that legally under the federal regs, but my thought is you can't split a position like that. You still have to pay overtime.
well, that's what I'm saying, though, they would have to have their own business per se as, I'm just making up a name here, Johnson's Instruction Service, and they're gonna provide this instruction, and they bill you individually, their own entity. That's a different story. That's how it would have to be. You cannot just say, okay, you can clock out now and then we're gonna pay you, because you're actually, since they're hourly, you would have to pay them hourly again. They would have to be a complete private entity billing you.
Like an
and not-
LLC.
Like
or
an
something,
LLC
yeah.
or something.
Let's-
Consulting. Yeah.
Let's
we
take
got
a break and do the pledge, and then we'll come back.
Yeah,
Can you
sorry.
come back at 10:15?
Sure.
Okay, let's do that.
road.
Yeah.
It's not fun.
That's a good point, Todd, about that.
Right,
But
sure.
you're exactly right.
Okay, everyone, we are back on the clock. Thank you, Jody. Michelle, back to the topic we cut off on. I think Andrew was laying out some reservations about the person doing two jobs.
I kind of liked what Todd was saying towards the end as well, that I suppose if it's a separate, totally complete entity LLC, we could check that out to see if that would be a legal way of doing that. But my concern would be if it's just the same employee just putting on a different hat and saying, I'm not working hourly anymore, but I want to do more hours. That's something that would not be viewed as legal under the federal system, in my opinion. Going to employment law seminars and being aware of some of that stuff.
I absolutely agree with that. You run afoul every time.
It's a great idea, but the federal government has set up rules to prohibit that sort of thing.
Yeah. We end up in
I mean,
overtime.
it would be great for everybody if it could be done, and it's not going to hurt them, but the problem is the government put in solid rules to prohibit abuses. This would not be an abuse, of course, but not intentionally anyway, right? That's, yeah.
You got a plan B?
Yeah, there could be. I mean, I guess, so in fact, I could check with that employee and see if they're interested in trying to set up like an LLC, and if they are, that would be an allowed way to set it up. Otherwise, obviously, we would need to look for somebody outside of the department interested in providing these services.
Okay.
It wouldn't necessarily have to, I mean, it could be a sole proprietorship, but it would have to be done under a contract situation so that it was a very clear delineation between employment and.
They have to be completely self-directed though, too. That's the other
Yeah.
thing, is you cannot direct what you want from that person. Now, you can lay out a course, like, hey, this has to be taught, but they have to be 100% at their own direction and not supervised in order to be because it'd be a 1099 contractor.
Yeah,
is what it'd
you
be.
can't dictate hours or.
Nothing.
Yeah,
So it's no fun. I get what you're trying to do, but you do not want to get crossways with the feds on this one.
How many hours would that slice of the training take per week, do you think?
We were looking at about 5 to 6 hours of cognitive behavioral classes.
Is that, I mean, it's probably unwise to just start allowing a bunch of overtime hours, but, I mean, you could give, the problem is this training would have to be ongoing for multiple weeks, probably, is that the idea?
Yeah, so the idea is that we'd have these classes set up, and even though the subject matter or the actual class that's being taught would, it would kind of change throughout the year. Just the idea that we're able to offer these things, and it's going to be about 5 to 6 hours pretty much steadily throughout the week. I mean, probably not around the holidays and things like that, but the rest of the year it's going to be about the same every week.
That'd be a lot of overtime if you just wanted to pay the overtime to the person to do it, too.
I think although you're better off paying little overtime to someone than to hire another person, especially if that person is well-versed in what you do there already. You know, it would make sense to me just to pay the overtime as much as I hate to
Have you
versus
calculated
hiring
that?
someone else.
That's not going to be feasible for us.
Well, I meant, have you calculated what is it going to be if she does the overtime versus what you're going to pay out to a contractual service person?
I have not, but I can tell you off the top of my head it wouldn't be feasible for us. So that's my next subject that I'm going to get to. So I'll just do it now. So I wanted to let you all know that the DOC grants came out, the one that we rely on for more than half of our funding. This year, for whatever reason, and I haven't been able to get a clear answer on this from anyone, the state, even though there was supposed to be slightly more funding in that, for that committee to give out this year, they actually were told that they could give out $2 million less than they gave out previously. So there are about 27 programs across the state who received budget cuts for their grant funding. We were one of them. So in our residential program, we're going to receive about $50,000 less in the grant funding than what we had for 2023. So Ms. Talley, who's my finance manager, and I had spent some time going through our budget to determine where we could move some things around, change some things. It is going to look a little bit different than what we had originally turned into the county, just because we had to come up with some of those differences in different places. Everyone at Community Corrections is still going to get a raise for next year. It's just not going to be quite at the level that some of them we had originally planned to give. We were working really hard at getting everybody up to this salary ordinance for the county, which they had not been in the past. Our original budget that we turned in May did that, got everybody up to that level, but now that's not going to be the case. So, like I said, everyone's still going to get a raise. It's just that we had to reduce some things, we had to move some things, we had to eliminate a position in residential that hadn't been filled. So that's how we were coming up with the difference. So we do have a new budget that we need to turn in, and also that has to be turned back into the state on August 18th. So I know for a fact that there isn't going to be a lot of extra money for us to be paying overtime for anyone to be working extra hours every week.
But you're still going to have money in contractual services to pay.
Yes, that's accounted for in the budget as of now. We have $7,500 that we moved into the contractual line item so that we could have this instructor to come in and pay, doing the invoices by class.
I know, but that's what I'm saying is you need to figure out how much overtime, actual overtime, time and a half this person would have. Is this person a 70-hour or 80-hour?
70.
Okay, so there's 10 hours that's just straight time. You need to figure out how much of that is going to cost in 2 weeks compared to what you have the $7,500 for in the contractual services.
Okay.
And then you wouldn't pay it a contractual person, you would actually pay it in payroll. So you need to see how that plays out.
What's the hourly rate of this person currently?
I do not know that off the top of my head.
22,
Have to go look
23?
it up.
You had no idea?
I really don't know. No.
Okay, I'm
I'll
going
have
to call
look
it
up.
20, 23. And if you pay them overtime, that's looking at, call it 35 an hour with everything in.
But if it's only 6 hours a week,
That's what I'm saying.
it's straight time.
Oh, I see what you're
She's a
saying.
35-hour,
Hours.
she's a 35-hour a week, so.
Oh, yeah, because it's
So
full
there would be
time's 35
5 hours
hours.
of straight time and 1 hour of
Yeah.
overtime. That's the calculation that needs to be
Well,
done.
here, if it's only an hour, let's just call it, I'm going to shoot high and call it $30 an hour, you know, considering 5 of it would be straight and 1. If you take 7,500 divided by 30, that's 250 hours. I mean, that's 5 hours a week right there. I think you got enough money just to probably pay them, is my guess. If, like I said, if you figure out the hours, you might be able to work it with that 7,500 that you currently have contractual, just move it in your budget over to regular salaries possibly.
Okay, we can look into that.
I would look into that and see if you can make that fit in.
That makes sense to me from the legal standpoint.
Yeah.
Yeah, it takes a lot of complication out of the whole works.
What's that what is the current title? Do you know?
Probation officer.
I'll do some figuring and Shannon can do some figuring too and see what it comes out to be.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Okay, we'll look into that. One real quick thing that I had, just because I wanted to get it on your radar, because I'll probably be coming back on it really quickly, is because we don't do medical at community corrections, we have staff that do have to, we call it pass meds. They don't obviously have anything to do with prescribing. They don't have anything to do with dosing or anything like that. They're pretty much just, we keep the meds in a locked area. The person has to come and request those, and our staff just make sure that they're not taking more than they're supposed to or doing, you know, anything that's out of the prescription from the doctor, dentist, or whoever has given them that prescription. We recently were at a meeting where we found that there's a much easier way to do that. There's a company that will come in and provide those services by providing things in blister packs. So like, this is your morning dose, this is your afternoon, this is your evening. And as I've been told, and so far talking with that company, it doesn't cost us anything. Obviously, they're making their profit off of being the one dispensing the meds and things like that. So I'm in contact with other counties who are already using that service on how they wrote the policy, what they do if for some reason a med isn't available or this company can't take someone's insurance or something like that. How do they have a, you know, backup plan for those situations? And I sent some information already, and I think Andrew had a chance to look at that and said he believes it also may be a better way to be doing that than what we're doing now. So I'm going to get some more details on that, maybe answer some of his questions, and then probably looking to switch over that as quickly as we can, just so we can be doing things a more efficient and safer way.
We already have that at Sunny Meadows.
Yeah, Angela's doing that.
Perfect. I'll get with her too and see if it's the same company she's
Yeah.
already using.
Get with
so.
her because it might, yeah.
Yeah,
I
might
think-
be able to
She
combine.
might be able to combine it up or get you fast track to it to get it going quicker.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you need anything from me as far as the maintenance position goes? Would you like me to send the info I already have?
Can Can you email us what you
Yeah.
already have
Right.
and
Go ahead and do
let's
that.
stew on that a little bit?
Okay,
And if you
perfect.
get some bites in the meantime, I mean, there's just some potential candidates we could take a look at.
The sun may shine.
Yeah, don't turn anybody down.
Yeah,
Okay,
Right.
yeah, but stay off the ladders.
Yeah, don't get on that roof.
all right. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Have a good day.
Okay. We will move on now to, I have on my list, Resolution 2023-R-13. Todd, do you want to take the lead on this?
Yeah, for the healthcare, right?
Yes.
So I would like to start off by saying both sides of this issue have valid points. There is a need. We have a lot of poor people that could be helped with this money. There's some education that can be done. And there's also some distrust, and rightly so. We were lied to by the CDC, WHO. Our state ran with it, and there's some distrust, and I get that. But what I would like to do is talk about DeKalb County. First thing I'd like to start with is Ashley Grogg that commented, said we would only receive $60,000, I think, to $120,000. That's inaccurate. We would get somewhere between $400,000 and $500,000. And I called her immediately after the meeting. She admitted the mistake, was apologetic about it, and that's fine. So we would get a lot more money than what was discussed. The next thing I'd like to say is per capita or per head, is that your word is used, is not correct at $3. I don't know where that number could even come from. The reason why I say that, between the Health Department Northeastern Center alone,
Well, no, wait a minute, you can't put Northeastern Center in that.
stop, just let me, you can
Okay,
talk,
okay, all right.
just stop for a minute. You're gonna like where I'm going with this,
Okay.
just let me, the Northeastern Center, we have to pay them. State says, that's healthcare.
Yeah.
Any way you look at it, it's mental health care. We spend $1,045,000. That's $24.15 per resident right there. If you throw in other, and it's all how you, the metrics describe what the per head is. If you throw in RISE, Alliance, DART, federal grants that DART gets, on, and you could break up some of that as saying medical, we could be as high as $50 or $60. And that's not even including Sunny Meadows, which technically is some health care. I mean, those people are, a lot of them, unfortunately, have schizophrenia. We provide a great service for those people.
Yeah.
So both sides were wrong. We keep throwing out numbers, and they're not verified. And so we do spend more than $3. It's at least $25. It's probably closer to $50. Let's move on from that, though. The next thing, the one statement I'd like to also talk about is, there was a statement made, you always take the money and figure out later if you have to give it back. That's exactly what we don't do. That's about as good a statement as it goes right along with, we need to sign the bill to see what's in it type out attitude, and we need to stay away from that. Next thing I'd like to say, U.S. News and World Report has a great website that compares every county in the nation. It uses over 80 metrics to determine overall health, not just metrics that are built to drive a result, okay, a predetermined outcome. Indiana's about right in the middle in average when you consider all the metrics. We're not that, we got problems, don't get me wrong, there's no doubt. But to say we're 45th is not correct. You got to look at all the metrics that are available. And if you go on that site, you can compare our county to any county in the nation. The other thing is, children can be covered by health insurance in DeKalb County through the SCHIP program, and it's pretty much free for really low income, and it's very affordable for higher income. So there is some coverage available. Now, it takes some time to get on it, and we need to fill the gaps there, but that is available. What I would like next to talk about what the bill does not do. Your personal data is not harvested by the IDOH through this bill. That's been said, that's not true. You're not gonna have your personal data given to the state, and the state's gonna take over and take over your life. So that's unfounded. The vaccines are not mandated, such as COVID. I'm an anti-COVID vaccine person. I'll state that right up front. I think it's poison. I think we've been lied to, but the vaccines are not mandated for COVID. The state does not take over the health care on this bill, period. I've had people email me and say, well, I don't want the state taking over my health care, what doctor I can go to. That's not going to happen with this bill. The taxes do not increase with this bill. Now, taxes can always go down if the state stops spending money. There's no doubt about that. The fact that they handed out, what, Mike, $1 billion back to us says that we're overtaxed. There's no doubt about that. So my suggestion to everyone that's against this, because we spend money, is to tell the state to stop spending money to start with. Stop taking away from money from us that we don't need. But with that said, if we don't take this money that was taken from us locally, it at least comes right back to us and we have control of it. So going forward, I think we really need to think about who we elect as far as spending. If we think we have a spending problem, we probably need to address that, okay? But that's what it doesn't do. What the bill does do, it disperses roughly maybe up to $500,000 to us the first year, could be up towards to $1 million in future years, okay? It does allow for 40% of the funds to be used for current operations, which we are lacking in. We need nurses desperately. So that is a big help, the 40%. It allows for 60% to be used for targeted areas of concern that the state's defined, that they've been fairly liberal in letting us decide which ones we want to do, if any, okay? If any. We do not have to spend the money to get more money in the following years, which I like. I hate bills that are written say, hey, if you don't use this money, you don't get the funding next year. Now, they may change that if the counties decide to just stockpile money and not use the services. However, the way the bill's written, that money stays in our account even if we opt out, period. They cannot claw the money back. So we do not have to give back the money. I'll be brief. I'll go through it here a little quicker now.
You're fine.
The biggest benefit to this bill is the poor, especially broken families. This is where the money should be spent. We are very blessed to live in a safe and prosperous county, helping, but not enabling those that are in medical dire straits due to poverty is something the Lord asks us all to contribute to. When someone's basic needs are not met, they have no ability to contribute or better themselves so that they can contribute in the future to everything. We really should follow Jesus' example when considering the poor. With medical help, there must be an education and accountability program that goes with it, in my opinion. For instance, when Jesus healed the sick or fed the masses, he gave instruction and rules, and it was for their betterment. But he still helped them first. They have to be in a place to listen, and if they can't listen, if they're not eating or if they have a tooth that is abscessed and they're, so we have to help people. But we cannot hand out free syringes for drug addicts or support any form of abortion operation, regardless of the reason for pregnancy. And I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying we need to safeguard ourselves from that. We already do fund, but we should demand change from people if we help with those addictions, similar to the drug courts. The drug courts get people in, they follow rules. If they follow rules, they progress. If not, they go to jail, okay? Same thing here. People receiving help need to get off these addictions. We already fund Northeastern Center, or we help get grants for the addiction courts, community corrections, drug-free DeKalb, et cetera. I think we could use the SRO program also. I think if we do this, some of the money should be funneled into the SRO program. The schools need to be the first line after the parents, and they need to back up what the parents want. When I was in school, cops scared me, and that was good. As a child, police are not they're your safe place, but they should also be like your parent. They should be that enforcing, unmovable object that says this is the way it's going to be and you're going to do this. I had the best teachers when I grew up. We had the best programs, anti-drug, anti-illicit sex. It was great. I just think that that needs to be brought back, and we need to start not being buddies with kids, but we should be the authority over kids, and we should have officers in there to teach them. Yeah, we got to drive that. Proper physical and mental health begins at home, should be backed up by our very strong programs at school. So I think it's imperative that we write an ordinance that gives the commissioners the final say when it comes to the 60% available to spend on the targeted programs. The health department and medical head officer can come up with a yearly spending plan with details of how the money is spent. The commissioners can work with the health department to ensure the money spent is always the best use of the funds. And again, in my opinion, benefits the poor. That's my biggest concern is the poor here. So, so it would be my motion that we table this issue for this week, write an ordinance ready to present next week, and pass both the ordinance and the resolution at the same time. I will vote yes to this option and opt in if we can come together and agree to that.
Comments, Mike?
Can we do that in that time frame, Andrew?
Well, I think so. I would probably want to meet with Todd to get an idea, and we could get our heads together to prepare.
Just so you know, not to cut you off, but I called Mark Souter. We had about a half-hour conversation, and he agreed to all this. He said it sounded very fair, and he'd be willing to have full supervision of the program by the commissioners.
Yeah. And I guess the second question would be, since this funding will go into the health department budget, do we have to get, if we do it that way, do we have to have council approval?
Well, yeah, I mean, that thought crossed my mind here today as I'm listening to it. I mean, the council usually approves budgets, right? So, but this is areas of the this is areas you want them to have in their programs, I guess.
The ordinance, for me to support this ordinance, would have to say the commissioners would have to approve the expenditure. Because this is, we can write the ordinance to that effect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, that, they can write any budget, they can approve any budget they want, but the disbursement of the money to the individual programs would be at our discretion.
Yes.
I just want to see this money, if we're going to take money that's tax money, I want it used for the best purpose. And the underserved poor, there's other programs, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying other programs won't be funded, but the underserved poor, we got to help these folks. If they truly people in dire needs, they need help.
Yeah. And these funds need to be overseen by folks that are elected to this position.
Yes.
It's our job. To turn it over to a non-elected entity or personnel is not proper in my mind.
Well, for instance, Ben Parker runs the highway department. But when he wants to spend $100,000 on a piece of equipment, he comes to us. We don't just give him full reins, okay, your budget's that, just spend your money. I want to have the same oversight here.
Yeah.
I'm not saying the council can't approve or disapprove the budget. I'm saying we control where this 60% of the money goes. The 40%, Cheryl knows where that money needs to go. That's pretty.
You authorize what road is to be repaired. is your
Exactly.
point.
Yeah. So that's where I go with it.
And then there are, specific parameters, both on the 60% and the 40% that the money needs to be spent on and can't go outside of those
Right.
parameters.
Right.
Right.
So the oversight on that doesn't cause any problems at all.
No.
I think that's,
And I think that's the whole
I think that's-
idea of what.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that's entirely
Yeah.
reasonable. I don't have a
Yeah.
problem with that.
Yeah, I don't think we can do that. That would probably render the ordinance illegal if we did do that. So we
Here's the
have to
best
stay
case.
within-
Eat it by Wednesday.
Well, yeah, if we go
Guidelines.
outside of those parameters,
Yeah.
you're ineligible for the funding and
Right.
you're booted out of the
And-
program.
And here's the reasoning behind this. If we don't take the money, it's just going to go to another county and be spent. And again, we need to push, if you really think we're being overtaxed, we'll push our leaders saying, hey, you return a bunch of money, we're obviously being overtaxed. That's fine. But to not take the money and it go to another county when we can at least, even if we don't spend it, it sits in our bank account instead of the state's bank account or another's. And we can, if you read the bill carefully, it says, if we opt out, it just says it has to be used for health services. It doesn't necessarily say the 60% at that time once you're out. Now,
No.
that could be a
Yeah.
point of argument. However, I'm just saying this gives us options, whereas if we just don't take the money, we have no options now.
Right.
At least we have money in the bank if we do it, and they're mandating nothing.
Yeah.
So I I just don't see how we can lose by taking it initially, and if we opt out 2 years from now for whatever reason, we might have $1 million sitting in that account. So that's where I stand.
Okay, I think what we would do.
And I think there's going to have to be some show of the money being spent on those programs. In other words, you can't just let it all sit.
Oh, no, I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that if we don't find worthy programs, there's nothing wrong with letting the program set until we find that perfect worthy program.
I agree.
And that's oversight that we should be doing. And we should be working with Cheryl and Mark and saying, or Dr. Sutter, I call him Mark. We should work with them directly and say, where do you see this going? Get the Dan Schmitz of the world and Dr. Schmitz that have been on the front lines there for 47 years. Get the Dr. Morrows in where they're seeing vision problems and say, where does this money really need to go? Those are the people I trust. These are pillars in our community that I think can really help us with this issue.
I agree, and, I appreciate your analysis of this program and what you've come up with. And, I think it's significant that there hasn't been a single healthcare professional in the county who's opposed this, and the Dr. Morrow, Dr. Sauter, Dr. Schmidt, Parkview, St. Martin's, all are in favor of this. And just a couple of comments. If the state wanted to take over the local health departments, they would have passed what came out of the governor's commission right out of the box. And it was mentioned during a conversation with the legislator, why would we spend the entire session? This bill passed within the last 2 days of the session. Why would we spend the entire session taking all of the mandates and all of the state control out of the bill and making it all local control if we wanted to do some kind of a backdoor takeover? We take millions of dollars worth of state money every year. Health department funding we've been taking for a long time, plus Cheryl does some other grants that are state funded. We got $8 million in ARPA funds. We've taken $5 million in CCMG grants. We'll take another $5 million on the County Road 56 project. Community corrections takes 1.2, 1.3. Problem-solving courts are about $200,000 a year. All that state money. Auburn, Garrett, Butler take millions of dollars in Okra money every year, and yet here we are sitting here having a free discussion with no pressure from anybody to do anything other than make a decision based on our best options. So, I think the idea that this opens the door to state control is certainly inaccurate. And we clarified your question on the opt-out, so I think we're clear with that. So,
And that was my biggest concern, the letter that we received, or the opinion we received from the lady who has the authority,
Yeah.
says we can opt out and keep the money. That's
yeah.
all there is to it.
And Senator Johnson confirmed that
Yeah, and it
during
was
the conversation, as did Representative Smalt. So,
And here's the thing that concerns me, and I didn't have a chance to talk when Michelle was up here. If they start cutting our money, that's fine. We just opt out.
yeah.
Because like with her, state, do community corrections, greatest thing ever. There'll be unlimited supply of money. Oh, guess what? We're cutting that budget. Sorry you built the building and hired everyone. That's why we distrust government.
Yeah. And
Do all this.
that point was brought up when
Yeah.
communications
Yeah.
first started up. What if they cut the funding?
And I feel bad for
And
her because now
voila.
she says, well, we're not going to fill that position now. Now we're going to, and eventually then it becomes local burden. It starts as a state funded, here, we're going to help you. Oh, by the way, we ran out of money, similar to our County Road 56 project. Oh, we don't have any money to do it this year. We'll get with you next year. Okay, the price went up $3 million. Do we get an additional 80% of that $3 million? No, you only get 80% of the $3 million still. So that's the distrust I'm talking about. That's the thing that we got to get past. We got to work within the system. But again, I just see some real help for the poor here, and I just think I don't think it's a bad idea now that I've really dug into it.
Okay.
I agree with that.
Moving
Just as a
forward.
real quick aside, though, on that County Road 56 project, NDOT is determined to fund the full
Oh,
project.
good, they're
at
onto that
80%.
now?
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Because Ben said before they weren't, but,
Took a lot of conversations. to
okay,
get
so I'm
there.
I'm behind that.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Am I supposed to read this?
Read it
Do
if
you
you
want that
want,
letter
but
read in today or next week?
do we have a consensus that this is a good idea to move forward on?
Yeah, let's do a motion. Let's do a motion on the ordinance.
Okay, my motion, again,
To table it.
is to table to next
Right?
week.
Okay.
The resolution, and I don't want to use warp speed because I hate that term. Warp speed, ordinance, and pass both at the same time. I do not want to do the resolution until we have the ordinance in place too.
Yeah.
And to table and pick it up next week.
Do both next week.
Yes, and we'll read that next week
We
also.
have a second?
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional comments from the audience? Yes, please. Is that mic on?
Sorry. Ann 40, 5125 County Road 60, St. Joe. So I thank you, commissioners, for, I think you guys have thought through, I think you've taken our comments seriously. And even if some of us disagree with maybe where you ended up, we can certainly understand why you ended up there. But I do believe that you've taken our concerns seriously. The reason I wanted to come today is because I kind of want to put addendum onto my remarks last Monday, where I was concerned about the funding because of the trustworthiness of our federal government agencies, our public health agencies. And after I spoke, as I laid out evidence and a couple of people spoke, kind of alluding to the fact that maybe what I was saying was conspiracy theories, I thought, I need to come back because this needs to be on the public record. When I talk about that we don't have trust in our public health agencies, I don't mean Cheryl Lynch. I don't mean Andy Dirksen. He's our vet. I think Dr. Chase is on the board. My kids grew up, I don't mean that. But what I mean is that our federal agencies, the CDC, the FDA, they count on our trust in Andy, in Cheryl, in the doctors you just mentioned. They count on us. Oh, these are the pillars of society. And if Tyler says it's okay and Dr. Murrow says it's okay and Andy says it's okay, well, that's who I trust. Now, I've had discussions both with Cheryl and with Andy. With Andy, he's like, Ann, I was presenting all this stuff. He's like, Ann, you have to understand we're just a small little community here. And I said, well, Andy, you just need to understand what's happening at the national level. And I want to say, okay, so I have said before, I've sent you guys all kinds of information. I work with Bree Dressen, who is probably at the center of the COVID vaccine, corruption, in that she was in the trials. She was flown out by the NIH. She has worked with the heads of the NIH, Peter Marks, Janet Woodcock. She's got a lawsuit against the Biden administration because of the collusion with the social media companies. Okay, so I work with her directly. I've been involved with this for 3 years, probably 50 hours a week, working with COVID vaccine injured all over the world. She sent me something this last week. Read it. She said, hey, can you edit this video down? And this was a video of the people who were sent out, and every single one of you people in this room should listen to it. These were the people that the NIH and the CDC systematically, they sat, Peter Marks, Janet Woodcock, the NIH, you'll hear his name in the video because I'm going to send you the video. They know everything that's happened to these people, and they systematically have cut them off. Andy Dirksen doesn't know about this. Cheryl doesn't know about this. The pillars of our society. I'm meeting with Tyler because Tyler, what are you going to do about this? This is the corruption that has happened. I'm going to read. So there's a documentary film coming out this fall on Bree, and it's called Follow the Silenced. Anyway, in this interview, that Bree sent me were the participants that the NIH worked with. Dr. Denise Hertz, 40-year gastroenterologist, a pillar of the community. She was immediately injured by the vaccine. She just wanted to commit suicide. She said, "My whole belief system has been shattered. I learned that what I used to believe in isn't true, and I no longer can trust our government to do the right thing." Bree states in these interviews, "The world is not what I thought it was. The control and flow of information is far beyond anything I could have suspected as far as corruption goes. I had no idea how bad it is." And if you watch this video, you will see how bad it is. You guys, if you've watched anything that I have sent you, you've seen the horror of these vaccine injuries. You have seen how these people are living. It is unconscionable. I have never witnessed anything like this in my over 60 years of living. And the problem is the pillars of our community are not aware of this. And so I say to you, I don't know what's going to be coming through the state of services that you're going to have to provide to keep this money. Given that Mandy Cohen, the new CDC director, has said COVID vaccines are going to be recommended every year. And I don't know the woman, and I'm sorry, I don't know her name. She was talking about OSHA earlier. Did you all know that OSHA was not required to report vaccine adverse effects during COVID? Yeah, that's a problem. Right now, Senator Young I just got notice of this over the weekend, is working with Senator Kaine in Virginia. Oh, they want to help the long COVID people, but guess who's not included in the language? The vaccine injured. This is the hell, the torture that is happening to tens of thousands of people. And you guys need to be aware of it. And I can put you in touch. If you wanted Bree Dressen to come here and speak at a meeting, I would hopefully, Bree is dying. She's got 2 little kids. I hope you will watch the movie about her coming out. And I will leave you with this quote from Alexander Solzhenitsyn. You might remember him as the Russian dissenter. He spoke against Stalin, and he was put in the Russian prison, and he talked about the horrors and just pretty much how did we get here? And he talks about how we just have to be willing to speak truth. And I wish I could read the whole passage. He wrote the Gulag Archipelago, because he was put in the gulags, and he writes about it. And I wish I could read the whole thing, but I can't. But this is what he says. He says, "You can resolve to live your life with integrity. Let this be your credo. Let the lie come. Let it even triumph in this world. But let it not come through me. Know what is going on. I can provide evidence for everything that I have said. I have committed thousands of hours to this. I have talked to the injured all over the world. It's here. And for anyone to say that it's a conspiracy theory, what's behind it all, I don't know. But I can tell you that your CDC and FDA and NIH are completely lying to you. Completely. And when those recommendations come down, the CDC recommends that, you 3 better be aware of the reality. And you need to educate the pillars of society who know nothing about what's happening. Again, I thank you.
Thank you, Ann. I think now would be the time to read the letter.
Okay. Okay. We received an email from Lindsay Winslow Brown. To me, she says, "Hello, I request that the contents of my letter be read in their entirety into the record prior to a vote on SEA 4. I do not trust that emailing it alone to my commissioners will result in my voice being heard or my request being approved, except for maybe Mike Watson. I have also submitted this letter to the editor. Dear Commissioners, I am seriously concerned about the direction of DeKalb County after watching a recording of the July 24th DeKalb County Commissioners meeting. Specifically, I'm worried about Commissioner Bill Hartman's desire to limit public comment during the meeting in reference to SEA 4, a public health initiative that could bring $1 million in funding of our taxpayer money to our county. Here are my questions. Number one, why would you invite public comment if you won't accept that comment at the meeting? My thought is that you don't want to hear what the public has to say, and you have already made up your mind. Number two, why would you base your decision as a leader who wanted to hear what the public thought by only allowing equal amounts from opposing viewpoints? If one applies even a teaspoon of logic, one could surmise that it's not going to be 50-50 in a room. My intuition tells me that Mr. Hartman, based on his handling of public comments when discussing solar farms in this county, was biased going into this conversation, and it appeared that he heavily favored not accepting this funding. Number three, why would you not base your decision on what local health professionals in schools, hospitals, and nonprofits, and most of our health department has to say? In the words of the county health officer, Dr. Mark Sauter, who spoke at the meeting, the additional funding would be extremely beneficial. From the trenches, our county nurse, Cheryl Lynch, said, our goal with the funding is to provide DeKalb County residents with safer living environment, more options for care, and easier access to services for everyone. Currently, we spend $3 per person on public health in DeKalb County compared to $80 per person in Marion County. Number four, why would you not base your decision, at least in part, on what most of the constituents have to say? I should point out Ashley Grogg was not a constituent because she was from another county. Better words for her might be acquaintance or friend of Mr. Hartman. I say this because he invited her by name, Ashley, personally to speak during the meeting. Number five, why are the conspiracy theorists not there when we are discussing highway funding or law enforcement? It is my hope as a voter and a constituent that you consider the facts and listen for the truth as you make decisions. I have also asked that the contents of my letter be read in their entirety in the record prior to the vote. I do not trust the email. She says the same. I don't trust the email to the commissioners will result in my voice being heard or my request being approved, except for maybe Mike Watson. Sincerely, Lindsey Brown.
Okay. Now, I will entertain more comments, but they need to be focused on the ordinance that we are set to vote on. Real quick, on the ordinance, to the mic.
You come up here.
Ellen Dooley, 2128 Palace Court. You guys said there was a letter sent to you about opting out. Would that letter be available to the public? You said someone sent a letter that says it's this easy to opt out. You were talking about that, Mike and Todd.
Got it here on my phone. It's a determination from the IDOH.
It was just a question I had last week, and I just wanted to know who exactly it was. And
This is the email from this morning.
Yeah, the letter came from Rachel Swartwood, who is the legislative and external communication director for the IDOH.
And she wrote down that you could basically opt out whenever you guys want.
Yeah, I can read you the excerpt here, I think.
If you don't mind, I just want to have it on record, said, wait, that was some questions that people were asking about, how do we do that? So I'll step back while you guys read that.
And this came through as an inquiry from Representative Small's office, and she was replying to that. If a county chooses to opt out in year one, the process does not change. They will continue to receive their legacy funding. Under the legacy funding, which has been the same for the last 20-plus years, counties are required to submit financial reports to IDOH. SEA 4 did not change any requirements to receive legacy funding. If a county votes to opt in year one and then votes to opt out the second year, the local health department would need to finish the required reports and services for year one. The money that goes to the county through the enhanced and legacy funding is non-reverting, meaning any leftover funds stay in the county. However, both funding mechanisms can only be used for public health. To vote in, a county has to pass a resolution and submit it to IDOH. To opt out, a county would follow that same process. After the county votes to opt out, the county would then go back to the requirements of their legacy funding. Sure.
Okay. Back to the ordinance that's proposed. That we instruct the county attorney to write up the ordinance. Any comments on that going forward from anyone?
Larry Williams, 2418 Woodland Trail. Yeah, I spoke out last week to opt out. Regarding the ordinance, I believe that I understand where this is a compromise Todd is offering. I think that I'm going to name him. Ben Smaltz failed miserably. Ben Smaltz failed to address the impact it would have on his constituents in this county. But now here we are. So the Governor's Health Commission coerced this ordinance, in my opinion. And you have a very difficult decision as a county governing board because of the way this was mishandled at a state level. I understand those who would, both sides of the issue, but here we are today on the ordinance. My reason for speaking out here, again, is to say that this decision has been forced down to a county level. Now, I am, from a financial perspective, curious about how, I hear, the money can be held in an account and, not spent, but it will force some spending, will it not?
It's going to have to.
Yeah, it's going to happen, right? So let's not have any illusion that this money is just going to be held into an account until everybody agrees on how it's going to be spent, because it will be forcing some kind of spending. Yeah, that's really about it. And just off topic a little bit. I disagree with you, Todd, regarding the data sharing. I know how the data sharing works, and your data is already going upstream. So that is something that I expect to continue to happen.
What data is that, Larry?
VARS data, and could probably tell you more about vaccine adverse experience reporting.
Well, what I mean, my personal health data will not be harvested to them and analyzed, and them tell me what I need to do with my health care, is what I'm saying. They already know I won't take the vaccine, so
right.
I'm sure that's in there. Todd will not take the vaccine. They can have that data. I don't care.
Yeah, I hear you.
I'm the biggest.
Yeah, well, I understand. Yeah, I do
against
understand
vaccines.
where you're
just so
coming.
everyone knows,
Yeah.
I think polio was probably a good vaccine. I don't know. I wasn't around them, but it wiped it out.
Yeah.
And I do want to say this too, and because I really appreciate what Ann's done here as far as research and education, but these vaccines are going to still be here. We're not going to stop that. But we can stop it by voting in better people at the federal level to stop the CDC.
Yes, sir.
So what we need to do is say, okay, we know the vaccines are going to be here. There's nothing we can do about that. As a commissioner, I will be the vocal person saying, don't take it. It's poison.
Yeah.
And I agree that the pillars of the community should be more versed. But here, let me give you a reason why they are versed. I'll tell you what, though, they're afraid. If you're a doctor, especially the health commissioner, and the CDC saying, kids need to wear masks, they need to do this, and he's going, or she is going, gosh, that really don't make sense, but if I go against them, I'm going to be lambasted and chastised and thrown out of the medical group. It's like being thrown out of the temple as a Jew.
Exactly.
You have nowhere to go. And so they have the problem starts at the federal level. So just because the vaccines are horrible, these current ones, the COVID ones doesn't mean we can shut down our health department, not take money. But we can educate people.
Yeah, and again, I understand where a compromise on this ordinance is coming from. And my one point, I do know doctors in this county who are opposed to this, but they're not speaking out.
Well, and that was my point. No one has come forward.
Because they're intimidated.
Yeah, well,
I agree with that.
I don't think we're that intimidating of a bunch.
At the state
Not by
level.
you, Mike.
State
We're
and
pretty
fed
mild,
level.
man.
Okay, but I mean, you guys will have to make a decision, and I recognize it's a tough choice.
To one of your points, Larry, if that money sits in the bank and doesn't get spent, no programs get implemented, that will automatically opt us out for the next year. So we wouldn't be eligible for any additional funding after that.
Right.
Although that money is non-reverting, so it's going to sit there. It
And
has
I
to
w-
be spent for healthcare, but we wouldn't get any funding.
And I would encourage anybody who has questions about what's being said
Yeah.
to pay attention.
Yeah,
The opt-out is more of a flunk out rather than an opt-out.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, anyone else? Yes, sir.
Just have a quick question. Andrew Provine's 3920 County Road 75. And actually, I think all of you guys have done a great job with this because based on last week, I wouldn't have thought that's the way you were going to go. But you did
Most
research.
people didn't.
Well, and you listened to both sides. So
It's called compromise.
you have to listen to both sides. You represent both sides every time, whether there's 5 sides, 2 sides, you got to represent everybody. My question is, since you're going to, what was the term with this ordinance, warp speed?
Yeah, I'm retracting that.
Will we have a chance to look at it before you guys do a final vote on it? Like, can the public look at what's in the ordinance so that we
Has
can
to
come
be-
ready for questions?
I have to advertise it when I put the agenda up.
I just wanted to make sure, just so, you know, we can, if we have questions, we can come in and talk about it as well. Okay, perfect. That's it. Thank you.
All ordinances and resolutions from the ordinance that they passed on their meeting procedures have to be posted or given notice 48 hours prior to their meeting. So I have to advertise that, not advertise, but I have to post that when we post the agenda on the website. And it also, that original ordinance also said that I have to have it available in my office for anybody to come and request copies of or anything.
So you have even less time.
Yeah, and that's why I'm asking.
Right.
Well, he flies airplanes. He's fast.
Right, he'll get there.
slow.
We'll get there.
We'll get there.
Warp
We'll get
speed
there.
airplanes.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Spoke last week. I'm John Graff, 5898 County Road 7. And I just wanted to say I was on the for side, you know, taking the money without a lot of reservation because I feel like you hire the people that run the health department, so you have that control over the health department. I take it that they're professional people. Dr. Souter spoke last week. I thought he spoke eloquently. I think they will do the best they can with the money they receive. I think the health department handles a lot of things probably most of us aren't even aware of. And one thing I mentioned was like restaurant inspections. You know, I want to make sure everything in the county is safe. If I'm going in a restaurant, I want to make sure it's safe. I want to make sure public drinking water is safe. I don't know if they do all those things or not, but I think they do a lot. So I think this whole elephant in the room is the whole COVID pandemic. If that hadn't happened over the last 3 years, I don't think there would even be any discussion as to whether we were going to take the money or not. But people have become so distrustful of the way the pandemic was handled and what came out of that and the whole kids staying home from school and the trauma that has put on the children and set them back in their educational attainment. I think all of that has affected everyone. And I think we need to realize that I'm not a medical person. I can't tell you about efficacy of vaccines. I can give you a little bit of a historical perspective in what Todd just mentioned, the polio epidemic. I grew up in the 50s. Every mother in the 50s was scared to death that her child or someone she knew was going to get polio. And they were terrified of that. I remember because my mom came home crying after receiving a phone call that thought my cousin had polio. She didn't, fortunately, but thought she did. When that vaccine was made available, every single child my age went to the junior high school and took that vaccine on that sugar cube.
From the same needle.
It was just a sugar
cube.
Oh, yeah, sugar cube. That's
It was
right.
a sugar cube. They put it on the sugar. Some people probably did another. But the parents were so relieved knowing that their children weren't going to get polio. You know, like you said, almost wiped it out. I guess there's a little bit of a resurgence now in some countries.
Yeah, the Rotary Club wiped it out by doing, do you know what causes polio? open sewers in the streets.
Okay.
Third world countries still had the problem,
Okay.
and the Rotary took over and
Okay.
put in sewer systems, and
Yeah.
that
But
took the rest of it.
It was our health infrastructure that took care of that relieved all that anguish, that parents were feeling. So I don't want to sit here demonizing health departments, because I don't think that's where we should be heading. If we can improve the work they're doing, that's great. And I think this compromise that you've come up with, it gives you some control. You still have the money to be used, but you have some control over the process. So I want to thank you for coming to a compromise.
To give you an idea, though, I won't speak for Dr. Souter because the conversations we've had have been confidential somewhat, but he's somewhat scared of the CDC. He's scared of the retribution he'll get if he goes against them. And he is starting to learn. As a matter of fact, he went against the state when they said, no, the kids need to keep wearing masks. He says, no, you're killing the kids. It's killing their mental health. We're not wearing masks in the school anymore. So he did see the light later, but he had to be cautious to start because let's say COVID would have really been as deadly as they said it was going to be.
Right.
And if he would have acted flippantly and said, don't worry about it, he would be in trouble if 5,000 people are dead. However, once it was known that the average age of the person that died during COVID was 80 years old, and the average life expectancy is 77, okay, it's bad disease, don't get me wrong. There were some young people that died too that shouldn't have. But there was so much mistrust due to the lie of Tony Fauci. He's a horrible person. He's a liar. He lied consistently. They have it. I mean, it's proof. It's no conspiracy
It's in the
theory.
headlines this morning.
It's in the headlines this morning. As long as we're going to take advice from people like that, I agree that our pillars of our communities need to start listening to the facts and not just what the CDC says because of fear. They fear that entity, and that's what we got to get away
Well,
from.
if you go back to when it all began, too, there was a huge fear that this could have a devastating impact on humanity. We didn't know what to expect. It was a new thing that had hit as an illness that no one knew about. We had to take the advice of the people that were held up as the authorities on this,
But
so
unfortunately-
everybody was scared.
Right, but unfortunately, they're the
That's
ones
how
that-
things happen.
I know, but unfortunately,
And
they were the
evolve.
ones that funded it and created this
Well,
virus, whereas polio was
yeah.
natural.
I don't
And-
personally feel like they are out to deceive us. I think that they were working as quickly as they could, making decisions as best they could, and some of them were wrong.
I think they is the imperative word there. Fauci did deceive us, and it was intentional. The rest, the rank
I
and
don't
file,
know.
Let's-
watch
I
the
don't know.
news.
Okay.
Move on.
But I don't want to go too far in
Kind
the
of
weeds
getting
there.
into the
but
weeds here.
I'm here for compromise.
Yeah. So, anyone else? Okay, I will call for a vote on the ordinance that Todd has proposed. We have a motion and a second. So I will call for the vote of all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carries. So that's the plan. We do the final vote next week on the ordinance and the resolution.
We'll have to meet today or tomorrow.
Let's just do it all night. Have it ready by 5 a.m.
Okay. I got a couple more items under miscellaneous. I promised Jack Hill he would address the speed limit on County Road 20
Okay.
and to reduce that speed limit to 45 miles an hour. And I don't know how far we should go with that. Should that be from County Road 23 to County Road 27, that 1 mile block?
I believe it should be. Are we talking the one that I drove with Ben? And yeah, that road, at 45, Bill, I think that's the absolute maximum speed on that road. That is a rough road with hills and poor sight distance and
And previous installed driveway that's way under the site requirements.
absolutely.
Yeah, so I'll call for a ordinance or a motion.
But with that said, I don't want to go much more, less than 45 because no one will adhere to it, so.
No.
Yeah,
45 is
yeah.
motion.
I'd move that we,
Would there need to be some notice to this, though, to the public before this vote, or not?
no, I think, don't we have to vote on it and then we push it and Ben applies for it? Or Ben,
I don't think
No.
so. There's no
We can
charge
only
involved.
do this by ordinance. You can only change the speed limit by ordinance.
Yeah, right.
So we'll have to have an ordinance to vote on.
Right, there's no ordinance that's
Okay.
been made public or anything.
Okay, how about a motion to write up the ordinance?
That's what I thought, where you thought you were going with it.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. I would, go ahead, Mike.
Well, I certainly want to hear what Ben has to say
Yeah.
and whatever the results of the NERC study were.
We
on
have that results. We had those results.
I don't recall that I've seen them.
We've
Maybe I
They were
did.
quite a while
While
ago.
ago.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, all
Yeah,
right. Well, then
we have
I
that.
can dig those up.
Well, why don't we do this, and why don't we review all that, and could we do it next week?
No, I'd rather have the ordinance written.
Okay.
Yeah, so I will second your motion.
Well, I'll move. I've read the report, and I've driven the road. It's not a safe road.
You made the motion, I
Yes.
will second.
Yeah.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, the same.
Aye.
This is just a motion for the attorney to prepare the
Yeah.
ordinance.
Right.
Thank you.
Right.
And just for the record, I'm opposed to changing speed limits to enable driveway permits.
Well, that's not what this is for. I drove.
For safety.
I drove the road, and it is not, and I agree with Mike on
And,
that.
and there's a driveway already there that was permitted by the previous administration that is not safe, so this is for safety.
Okay,
Yeah.
then that's a different story.
It is a very unsafe, you need to drive it. I can't believe that speed limit's 55 on that
Well,
thing.
I can't believe that driveway was approved.
Yeah, that
It's got
should,
about 200 feet.
Well, I
supposed to have
I think
500.
we have a number of driveways that should never
Yeah.
have been approved.
No, it was approved. It's been there a while.
Yeah.
Okay. Only other thing I have is tomorrow I'll be out of commission, so you guys can carry on. I will not be answering emails. I have a cataract surgery tomorrow
Are they going to
and
correct
next
your,
Tuesday. So
are they going to correct your vision so you can throw the glasses away?
no, I'm going to
Not-
keep the
not gonna do
glasses.
that?
And I'm going to keep, but I will be able to read a whole lot better.
Good.
Hopefully.
Yeah, good.
Okay. Anything else, anyone? Audience, anything else? Hearing nothing, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for your attendance.
yeah, I'd encourage you to, and I know where you're going with that.